Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Good Girls. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we had that situation with Max at the beginning. That situation I felt like was going to go one or two ways. The moment we saw him kind of being a little like, everything kind of posted up on that board, I'm like, oh, is this where I think it's going to go? And then we saw the gun. I was like, it's either he's going after them, the trio, or he's going to kill himself. I figured it was going to be that. But then, like, the moment we see that at the center of everything, it says Miss Bolin, I'm like, he's going after them. So that was kind of an interesting development. I thought it was kind of sweet how, like, there's so many different things to go break down. The fact of the matter is, Beth basically shows everyone like what she was up to. It's like, yep, here's your cut of like the money I basically took off the top from Rio. And obviously from the beginning, Ruby was like, no. It's like we literally going to end up right back at that van situation. But it's like she's skimming a little off the top. That's the problem with any criminal. Criminals know exactly when you're stealing from them, and especially in this type of situation, you don't even want to owe someone as dangerous as Rio $1, because it doesn't matter about the money, it's the principle of the matter type of situation. So that's what it comes down to. So that's kind of like one thing that kind of had to be kept in mind. But I love that Beth brought up this particular person that they knew. And it's like, oh yeah, this person was like getting a scholarship for bowling. And he's like, they got a scholarship for bowling? And Ruby was like, she was really, really good. But she basically stayed behind to take care of her family and basically had to give up her dream. Like, she had a great opportunity, but kind of had to pass it by to take care of her family. And now she works at a bowling alley and stuff like that, which Annie was like, honestly, that sounds great. And they're looking like, what? It's like, well, yeah, 15 lanes to yourself, all the food you can eat, and access to the arcade and stuff like that. I think it's just almost because she's the one that's kind of got the most kid-like mentality. So I think for her, she looks like, oh my god, that's super sick and dope, so. And then there was also a very interesting scene where Stan walks by and they're like, hey, what's up, criminals? Nope, no need to hide that from me. And he's just like, well, I got this party to go to. I'll see you later. And Beth just kind of looking like, what? And Ruby's like, he's kind of under a lot of stress at work. Kind of just showing like, once again, it's so interesting to me. I bring it up all the time. Stan's so flip-floppy because he'll be pissed at Ruby at one moment, then other points he seems like he's so okay with it, So it's just, that's like the weird situation with it all, but regardless. And I kind of circling back to it, I like that whole moment between Beth and Dean. I thought that was kind of super sweet because she's like looking at herself in the mirror and she comes out with the bathrobe and everything. And Dean's so busy taking care of the bird. She's like, oh, you should take a bath. He's like, she's like, with me. And Dean turns around and goes, oh. And I'm like, and it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, he's in our lives and everything, but that shouldn't stop us from getting weird. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I mean, it's got to make, because the last time they had special time together, it's like, oh, he was under the impression like, wait, you're just trying to get pregnant. We're not having a discussion. I mean, granted, that was her at the time being like, oh, I'm pregnant, just to cover up the fact is that, so that Rio wouldn't kill her and everything, but it's like, so it wasn't under the most because like, that's like the most recent situation, so it's like, yeah, things haven't been extra weird between them, but I just thought that was kind of a cute moment of her just kind of being like trying to be like not just trying to obviously succeeding, doing the whole sexy thing of like, hey, let's take the shower together and stuff, But then he brings up, it's like, yo, so what happened with the bird and everything? It's like, yeah, some weird dude chased me down. Because I love that we didn't get to see it, but I was like, I was wondering, I was like, how did that whole situation play out? Did he just walk away? And it's like, Beth is hearing him break it down, and it's like, oh, the dude called him something, and it's like, Joel. And Dean's like, how'd you know? And then we immediately see Beth, Annie, and Ruby sitting down with Max, and Max has got the gun, and he basically wants to know the truth about what happened to, his girlfriend, and then they basically break it down to him. And I love that Annie kind of breaking the tension, like, can I try the what was it, the egg bee or whatever? It's like eggs Benedict or something like that. And then they're just looking at her. She's like, what? They're supposed to be really good and stuff like that. And even later on, like, can I get a little bit of hot sauce? And I just love that. Because the lady just keeps coming back and just Max has got to hide the gun and everything. It's like she coming in, just kind of breaking up this complicated, this very like heavy tension. And so the whole conversation becomes like, the fact is Max is like, well, he's just going to get away with it, right? And it's like, well, he's like, I'm going to kill him, which obviously they immediately answer this because Annie's like, yeah, you can't really do that because, yeah, she would know. And it's like, if you miss, we're right back at the van. Yeah, she would know. It's like, I don't know if he 100% got what they were insinuating. Like, she tried this already to go for Rio, and it's like, if you miss your shot, it comes back to bite you in the worst way, and she's suffering the ramifications for that. I mean, that's literally why they're in this situation, is because she didn't put a bullet in his head. I mean, in particular, Turner didn't let him bleed out, you know? Once again, it's all Turner's fault for trying to... because he couldn't bring them 100% down. He tried to bring down the whole operation, and it ultimately ended up getting him killed. And now, once again, they have to suffer the ramifications for it. But Max suggests, like, he has a cousin who's a Navy SEAL. It's like, he'll do it. You just have to pay him about $30,000. But Max was like, do you have that kind of money? He's like, no, I was thinking you guys had that money. He's like, well, we don't have that type of money. So it's like, how are they going to get this money? So Annie suggests basically robbing the place that she works at, but obviously that's kind of a big no-no, because it's like, we've literally been through this cycle already. Like, you know, it's like, oh, the last place you said we should rob had more in it than we thought. You know, that's what kind of led us down this path in the first place. So they're trying to come up with a different means, and Beth is suggesting we just skim a little off the top more and more. But Rio decided to cut ties with them because it's like, I want to meet your ink dude to find out about these raised prices. Till then, I'm not doing business with you guys because I don't trust my partners right now, that being them. So that kind of screws the pooch on that department. So it's kind of like, all right, they decide to go with Annie's. Well, no, they actually tried to like get a loan, and then they go to JT, and it's like, he's like, why are you coming to me? The fact of the matter is, if you do, it's going to be higher money. Basically, he's trying to actually give them help, but they're like, no, like, we're trying to do something else. They're trying to speak around it in metaphors, and he's like, fine, we're trying to hire a hitman, and they're like, what? And you're looking at her, and she's like, come on, like, I was getting tired of all these, like, financial metaphors and stuff like that. And so the fact of the matter is, JT was like, yeah, but if you put me in this situation, it's going to cost a little more, because that means you're going to be putting me in a situation where if you guys ultimately die, because it seems like this is a situation where you likely could die, I'm the one that gets stuck paying for it. And I love Beth being like, just 5 more seconds of the financial metaphor, we would have been fine. And the fact of the matter is, now we're kind of in this complicated gray area. But then they're kind of bringing down the note of like, he's like, yeah, basically, why don't you rob a place anymore? And basically, Annie's like, see, I literally told them that idea, but they didn't want to do it. And JT signs himself up to be the dude that does it, so... And I love that, because Annie's like, only needs someone to get the money for him. And I love him showing up. He's like, give me money. And he's playing into it. He's like, bitch, and stuff like that. And I thought it was kind of pretty neat, Beth and Ruby playing block outside. Where the guy's like, yeah, like they're trying to be like, oh, would you like to sign a petition about... I forgot what the wording was, but basically it was about children that were just kind of thrown away and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to go inside. I was like, wait, you don't have time for thrown away children? And then eventually they're just kind of, he's like, yeah, is there a website or like, is there something I can do? It's like, oh, do you have any money on you? He's like, no, I don't have any cash on me. He's like, then how are you going to pay for something to drink that you were going in there to get? And it's like, we take credit cards too. He's like, all right, maybe next time. I'm like, I like them playing defense like that. But it's like, why is it taking so long? Lo and behold, some dude, I forgot his name because she says it in the episode, but basically he's the dude that ends up dropping off stuff to the convenience store. And lo and behold, he's got a gun on JT, and it's like, oh crap. He's like, I got this covered, ladies. You mind calling the cops because I don't, and then Annie's like, yeah, because I don't have my phone. And Beth is like, how about we just let him go? But the dude's like, come on, let's just call the cops. And it's like, oh, and he's like, see, he looks so apologetic. And he turns towards, and he's like, yeah, I am so sorry. And it's like, dude, this is not good. And Beth's like, oh my God, like there's no signal. And JT takes off, the dude fires. I'm like, I was like, that's shitty of you, because he was running by them. It's like, that could have been bad. I was like, and it's like, oh no, it didn't end well because Ruby got shot. Immediately the moment that happened, I'm like, oh, that's funny. You shot the dude in the foot, and now you kind of got shot in the leg. She literally references that later on. I like that they did actually. It wasn't. I was like, I'm glad it wasn't just me making a reference. I love that even they made a reference, because even Ruby's like, see, came full circle. Like I remind you of a certain Canadian, and it's like, oh, it's a little different, but for her, it's like, oh, the loop is complete. So I thought that was kind of an interesting element to it. I also thought it was super neat, because obviously it's like, Ruby, it's like, can we get you anything? And Ruby's like, can I get a Gatorade? And he's like, baby, you can get whatever you want. I was like, oh, that's so dope. I was like, oh. And they're trying to help her out. And home dude's getting the greatest. There's no green Gatorade. Get her a Frappuccino mocha, and that's what she wants. And it brought it to her, and it's like, am I gonna die? And then he was like, no, you drink up, and like I love that when the EMTs show up, they're like, did you do this? And she's like, yeah. And it's like, luckily you did what you did. Now she's able to save her life. You actually saved her life. And then Ruby kind of turns to look at Annie, and Annie kind of looks at her. In that moment, Ruby was almost like, Jesus, she's forever going to hoard this over my head. But it's interesting because like the whole thing with Annie, because she had actually talked to Josh earlier in the episode, the whole thing about, because I think for her, hearing that thing about someone getting a scholarship for bowling, she feels like she doesn't really have any special skills like that, especially because it's like, oh, she's 33 now. But then he references, what was it, the Jesus year or something like that, and she was like, what? That basically it was to say that age is the year that he died a carpenter but came back, and now there's literally like, basically the, where he stands now amongst like what he represents now, and even the fact is that people use phrases, and especially like the good old one of Jesus kind of representing that. I love that Josh also gave her that shirt, and it's like, and he's also like, oh yeah, how's your sister condition? I was like, ooh, right. He still believes that lie you told, as she, like, they just got back on good terms, so I don't think she's trying to like jeopardize that. So she's like, yeah, she went remission. Yeah, some guy gave her a herb. Yeah, and it's like, oh, that's gonna come back to bite you in the ass. So when he meets Beth again, it's like, oh my God, like, oh, you're Annie's sister. Yeah, you're told. Oh, how is everything? And Annie will probably be in your property, like, and Beth has to play along, like, yeah, I'm doing good. Probably. I think that's the interaction that's probably gonna happen. Maybe not. We'll see. But I love the moment Annie walks out. The kid outside is wearing the same T-shirt, and he's like, it doesn't help, and she's like, of course it doesn't. But nevertheless, I like what that kind of represents later on, because for Annie, it means kind of, for her, she's looking at this as an opportunity to look into how to become an EMT. And I thought that was pretty neat, because I was like, that's definitely going to be interesting. It would help, considering like the line of work you're kind of doing, and I'm sure that money would also help, with everything. But it's gonna be interesting to see, because like, once again, Annie's kind of the one that's kind of the most like the kid of the group, and so for her kind of being a little like, I feel like this season has definitely been her stepping more towards like maturity and kind of being a responsible adult, which, I'm envious, because I'm not a responsible adult. So, but because that's why I feel like out of any character, I vibe so much with like Annie. Annie doesn't have her shit together. I don't have my shit together. That's why, like, yeah, Annie's my girl, type of situation. But nevertheless, it is kind of sad because of the whole Ruby situation. Beth's like, it wasn't supposed to go down like that, but Stan was like, yeah, tell that to my kids, of like, that could have easily gone sideways. It might not have just been like a shot in the leg. It could have been so much worse. And so it's like, what do we do now? And it's like, they got to leave it up to Max. So lo and behold, Beth teaches him how to, use the gun and everything. And I love that at one point he's pulling out a little notebook, and he's trying to write notes. She's like, Max, just pick up the gun, and she's teaching how to use it. He's like, oh my God, it's so loud. Even at one point putting like those little cute headphones on him, and he's doing all those different shots, being like, I'm sorry, and then whips the gun out and shoots. Actually, I'm not. And just almost trying to get catchphrases. He's trying to get cute with it, leaning with it, and just like all the craziness. Like he's walking up and shooting. She's just like on her phone and stuff like that. Just that montage. I love it, because it's interesting, because he'd even been like, oh, like, how did you learn how to do this? She was like, actually, he taught me, kind of referencing Rio. And so it is interesting, like, you're basically you're taking what Rio did to teach you how to shoot, you're applying that and teaching that to the dude you're hoping will kill Rio. But when the time comes, like, he still never made it. Like, some of the shots were at least on the poster, but none of them were like, none of the shots ever hit the actual body outline in the poster. So I was like, she's like, don't worry, we'll just get you closer to him, and that way you won't miss. Had to sit down and everything, but when it was all said and done, Max couldn't bring himself to do it. And Beth tried to give him multiple opportunities to do it, but he just couldn't. And he's like, are you mad at me? Because apparently he was so scared he pissed himself. And she's like, don't worry, my kids do out of time. It's like, no, Dad, I didn't pull the trigger. And she's kind of like, no, because once you do that, it's not going to make you feel better. You're just going to feel empty. And he's like, you're going to feel nothing. And he's like, how would you know? He's like, basically how he's feeling right now. He's like, I'm sure that actually would feel great. And she's like, no, it wouldn't. And he's like, how would you know? She's like, just trust me. It's like, that's why I'm kind of getting the feeling like he didn't quite get the fact is that she tried to kill Rio, like, or or at least that she, because I think Annie's like, oh, she would know, never really clicked in his head of like, oh, like that she probably knows that she has experience, but not realizing that she's actually kind of going through that in that same regard. It was just kind of an interesting element, so. And obviously, at the end of the day, he wants Azul back because he wants to have something to remember Lucy by at the very least. And so that involves them having to return the bird and everything. And it's like, oh, you'll get whatever kind of pet you want in exchange. And at first, the boys are like, oh, a snake. And then it's like, but Beth is like, how about gerbil, hamster? How about that rabbit? I was like, oh yeah. And then we can feed the rabbit we can feed them all to the snake. Yeah. And so they all got excited about it. So, but I love that line from Dean being like, this is going to be the last thing he steals from us. So I thought that was interesting. An element to this I didn't talk about either was the whole situation with Dean's job. He's talking to that dude about work and everything. It's like, oh, like basically Jeff got some like Vegas deal and stuff like that. So he's kind of he got the relocation and the better pay and stuff like that. And obviously for Dean, he would love a chain of scenery considering everything that's going down. He kind of even breaks it down to the dude about like, the guy that's in his wife's like, because of the whole Azul situation prior, like from earlier in the episode, Dean now knows exactly what went down, just even more how much of a bad guy Rio is. I mean, yeah, plenty enough reason to know he was a bad guy, considering the fact is he shot you and slept with your wife, actually multiple times. But also now you realize like, oh, holy shit, he killed someone. Also realizing, holy shit, that could have been Beth, Annie, and Ruby. So that kind of puts it in a different perspective too. But just knowing like, oh, what they witnessed and what this whole bird situation's about, it's a lot to kind of wrestle in your back of your mind. But also it's kind of like, oh, how did Home Dude get the promotion stuff like that to do the sucking to Gale? It's like, oh yeah, he basically banged Gale, and it's like, oh. And it's like, what about you? He's like, no, I'm not going to be in that position and stuff like that. And so Dean kind of want to make moves because it's like all of the stuff that Jeff was going to work on before he got that new position and stuff like that. It's like, it's going to go back to corporate, but he's going to try and take over to kind of get some more money and stuff like that. And it's like, how would you feel if you had to sleep with Gail? He's like, I'm gay. And Dean's like, exactly my point. And so Gail kind of calls him in later on and like, whoa, you kind of went above my head to do that. And he's like, I forgot what it was exactly, but basically because he's like, because he can never make any good money doing all the sales that she's got him doing right now. He's like, and she's like getting on his case about it. He's just kind of like, oh, really? Like, she's like, that's not how we do things here. And he's like, really? Oh yeah, we know exactly how things go down here. And she's like, what does that mean? He's like, oh, you know what I mean. And she's like, get out of here. And he's like, you know what? No. And she's like, excuse me? Because basically she's like, I'm going to call like corporate. He's like, go ahead and I'll tell them exactly. It's like, they don't care about me. They definitely don't care about you. So saying that corporate's not going to do anything. This is obviously the most extreme example of sexual harassment. She references someone in particular. I can't remember the name in particular she references, but she's like, that what you think they're going to look at me as that type of person. But it is kind of shitty that you kind of screw over people unless they bang you. But obviously for Dean, he kind of cut a deal with Home Dude. It's like, oh, like the fact is I'm going to get my sales up. I'm going to do it over. I'm going to take all those work from Jeff. I'm gonna do another one and another one and another one, and then when it's all said and done, when you get out of this place, I told Home Dude that he would take your job. And I love him as he's leaving. He's like, oh, would you like the door open or closed? She's like, get out. And he's like, I would like you. She's like, leave or something like that. And Dean doesn't. So it's like, kind of a boss move, considering the fact that she's kind of screwing you over in that regard because you wouldn't screw her over. So I thought that was interesting circumstances. I was curious to see where things are going to go on that front. It's going to be interesting seeing how that progresses going forward. We'll see if it continues to work out in Dean's favor. But another interesting element to this episode is Stan. The party he went to for Crystal, it turns out she made a crap ton of money. He's like, whoa, that dude's place and this and that. I won't lie to you. There's a part of my brain that's like, it's not going to happen because it turned out not to be the case. But part of me is like, do you think eventually Ruby's storyline with Rio is going to cross over with Stan's, like the house that Crystal's going to end up going to and she's going to steal from is a very powerful guy like Rio, or if not some guy on that same level, and Stan's going to be involved. So it's going to involve Stan with, especially because where things kind of go, I'll go ahead and talk about it. The whole thing is like at the end, Beth, it's like her whole house got ransacked. They took everything out of their house when they got back from the pet shop or whatever, and it's like, oh, or at least I guess dropping Azul off to Max, whatever the case may be. They come back home, everything was taken, and Rio being like, don't ever steal from me again, Elizabeth. So if somehow he gets mixed up with, obviously you never, depending on, it's either going to be a thing of Crystal gets involved with like a very, like steals from a very, very bad dude, or it might be Rio exactly. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, but it's not until later on, because at first it stands like, what did you get mixed up in? And she's like, it's whatever the case may be. It's like, oh, you used to be a cop. I used to be like a kindergarten teacher, but the fact of the matter is this pays more. The guy shows up because it turns out she had stole from him and basically sold stuff off. And so now Stan's looking at this as a possibility, and it's because the sad thing is later on Ruby finds out like, oh, for one, he stole the crutches. It's like, yeah, they would have cost us $400, so it's like, oh, I just kind of stole them, and she's like, Stan, and then kind of like joking with him about the whole situation, but then he shows up with one of those little I don't know if they're called, what do they call mopeds? The little moped to kind of help her get around. It's like, oh, how'd you afford it? He's like, do you want to know about it's like kind of not really saying anything. She's like, do you want to know, like, do you really want to know? And she's like, do you want to know about the convenience store situation? He's kind of like, no. And she kind of has this half smile that kind of disappears because now she's realized, because I think now it's that point where Ruby's starting to blame herself, because it's like, he used to be such a steadfast person, and all that stuff she said about him last episode, never do anything criminal, but now like he doesn't feel like he deserves to be in a uniform anymore because all the lines he's crossed, and now because he's kind of crossed those lines, that gray area is starting, like Stan is starting to float more towards that gray area now, and I think that's kind of making her kind of regret it a little bit. Now, I think she's thinking in her mind like, oh my God, my husband used to be such a stand-up dude, and now he's becoming slowly corrupted because of me and everything I got mixed up in. So now their daughter and son don't have to just worry about one criminal. They got two potentially. I mean, granted, he's not in that criminal area. Well, I have to take that back because I forgot. He's literally told Crystal, like, okay, we're going to handle things this way. We're going to go to a party first. Okay, you're going to make an excuse to kind of come back to a party a second time. We steal one valuable thing, and like they're trying to organize this a little bit more. And Crystal's like, are you sure, Stan? And like, because obviously he's such a moral compass, and now it's like, now that's kind of disappearing. So it's like, that's going to be interesting to see, like, because Ruby already struggles the most with that whole situation, feeling guilty about Stan and her family, but now it's like, oh great, now she's going to feel even more guilty about it. So a lot of stuff to kind of consider. I was worried the entire time that basically I was worried the entire time that eventually, like, Rio would come after Max because he realized who Max was. I'm sure he wouldn't know because they never told him. Like, it only said, like, Lucy had a boyfriend and stuff like that. Like, that's as far as they went. They didn't really go too deep into it. So, but I was still worried, like, eventually he realized, like, what Max was going to do with the gun and everything. Probably knew, like, oh, this is some BS dude that you brought to kind of cover for like the ink and stuff like that. Like, no, I now know for sure that you stole from me. Don't worry, I got you. So type of situation. So a lot of stuff to keep in mind going forward into the next episode. I'm very interested to see where this all ultimately ends up taking us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.